I think Josh knows that he's an asshole, but he's trying to be manipulative. I think Rob genuinely believes in his victim complex. I think he genuinely believes that he is not appreciated enough. I think he genuinely believes that Sophie getting hotter since they broke up is something painful for him that we all need to recognize, that kind of shit. Sophie said everyone is responsible for ruining their marriage except for Rob. I don't think he knows how to take responsibility. I don't think he thinks he's an asshole.
Listener discretion advised. Adult language and mature content.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Two Queens, One Screen. I'm Jen.
I'm Keeley.
And we are fully getting back into our favorite things as we transition out of something that we used to love, and now we're just mad at everybody. Today, we're going to give our nice quick recap on episode 2 of 90 Day Fiancé Last Resort Tell-All. Then we're going to jump into true crime. It's been a while since we've talked about true crime. It's something that you and I have in common, although I'm going to be honest, you are the queen of true crime in this friendship.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, I talked about it. I guess I talked you into it, maybe.
Well, so I grew up, my dad, very into true crime. Dad was always reading a book about a serial killer. And then on long drives to keep us from being bored and obnoxious in the car, he would tell us stories about serial killer. And he'd be like, here's the story of Ed Gein. Or, you know, this guy used to do this. And here's a tale of Ted Bundy. Or this guy would bury women's heads facing up in the garden below his mom's window so he could say, people really look up to you, Mom. And then he'd laugh to himself and we would be like, ha ha ha. And that was a fun drive.
That is quality parenting.
Solid parenting.
Yes.
I turned out great. And
but did you? Did you? Here we are.
I know, here we are. I don't know. My self-esteem is fantastic, though.
Yes, it is. We've talked about that before. Unsubstantiated confidence.
Yeah. But yeah, so my dad is a big true crime guy. I'm married to a guy who wants nothing to do with it. And so I only do it on my, like, private time that I'm, like, watching my own stuff. And so that's not even my first go-to all the time. But yeah. I've always enjoyed it. You, on the other hand, you watch a lot of true crime. You told me about this. You will watch YouTube trials footage. Okay.
Yes.
So you ingest a lot of that kind of
the YouTube
stuff.
Live trials where they're actually going on live footage inside the courtroom with testimony and evidence. The evidence that they can show to the audience that's not too gruesome, but the live talking evidence that they don't blur that out, obviously, because people are speaking. I really like those. I listen to those at work. Oops. During the day. Yeah. Watch those. If it goes after work, if I'm really invested in those, I really like those if they go on and on and on. Those are quite interesting, but I do like true crime documentaries.
I'm really sorry. I am going to have these foster kittens for a couple weeks. I'm going to try and edit out the background noise whenever you are talking. But for anyone that's listening and hears that, it's kittens. It's adorable.
It is.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't be sorry.
Yeah. So, but Keeley, you find the good documentaries and then you tell me which ones to watch.
Yeah.
Which is something that we did last week. And you turned me on to Gone Girls, which was on Netflix. And it was really, really good. I sat down and watched all of it straight through. I couldn't turn. I needed to know what happened next. It was so good. And it was an awful story. But we're going to talk about that today after we do our quick run through of our 90 Day Fiancé.
Just season 2, Tell All Part 2. They left off with Brandon and Julia, right? The big stunner, with Julia telling us what she did with guy number 2 at her resort where she worked at in Russia in front of Brandon's parents. Again, yes, she kissed him. She kissed this person. And Brandon, of course.
She did more. Yeah. She, of course, did more. And do you know what? Her explanation of it was he had been here.
Yeah.
We had gotten into a horrific fight.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was done. He said that it's not. Then when the K1 thing went through and we were still talking, it was like, okay, so this is real. She came and she's like, I haven't done anything since I got here. I have been committed to you. And Sean, so messy. And she was like, so do you feel like you can trust her? And he was like, I really want to. He is such a pissy little bitch. She has been clearly committed to you for the last couple years. Who's she going to cheat with anyway in the middle of bumfuck nowhere?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can't trust her now. It's like, none of that.
Yeah.
You were not serious and exclusive at the time. And he thought that they were. So then, yeah, that's hard. But I don't know. The whole thing just seemed a little bit ridiculous to me. I'm more than a little bit over the drama of the past of those two. I think Julia is as well.
Yeah, I hear you.
How genuinely horrific for Julia. Julia forgot they were there. So they're like talking about it. She's like, oh shit, because they start talking. I think it was Julia who's like, you need to let me know. Are you going to let this go? Or are you going to hold on to this forever? And then Rob's like, you got to give him a minute to sit with it. And it was like, okay, I get that. But like, shut the fuck up, Rob. Rob wants to be everybody's hero in this. He's grossing me out. They then shift focus onto Rob and Sophie.
Oh, yeah.
They had gone from not speaking to then talking again, and they went to Disneyland together. So that was his first trip to Disneyland they decided to take as friends.
Yeah.
And they said that things shifted for them at that point. And the other thing that kind of came up was her boob job, because she's just gotten these new boobs a month ago. So Rob hadn't actually seen them yet, and she flashed him so he could get a good look, but he didn't get to feel them yet. Oh, love Sean for being messy, but also Sean's pissing me off because as they're talking about Sophie getting the new boobs and being on a self-love journey right now, basically Sean's like, how could you, and then you went and showed him your boobs, you're like teasing him. How could you do that to Rob? And like, excuse me, Sean. Like, she's allowed to go take care of herself. And Rob was like, yeah, it seems like she's going to go work on herself after she breaks up with me. Like,
yeah, what does that have to do with him?
Right. I had actually seen a video about this on Instagram at one point, and they were talking about, how women will have like a glow up post divorce. Like, it's basically a trope at this point. And how guys get really irritated. She gained all that weight during our pregnancy. She wasn't doing her hair. She wasn't putting on makeup. And now she's posting thirst traps on her Instagram. And that's shitty. And it's like, well, she was spending so much time trying to manage the house and manage you and the children because she wasn't getting support from you. And you weren't carrying any of the weight. So she was doing everything. Yeah. And now that she's dumped the extra weight off of her task load, yeah, she has time to work on herself in a real way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that specifically is true about Sophie in this scenario, but it kind of read that way for me. And Rob being a victim of Sophie's glow up is such bullshit. And I'm so irritated that Sean fed into that.
No, 100%. I'm disgusted by Sean. I think Sean needs to be fired because of that comment. 100,000%. Why does a woman's body have anything to do with a man? Anything to do with a man. I was absolutely sick to my stomach that she said that. And she actually said that to the entire cast. How does everybody feel that Sophie did this to Rob? Those were her exact words. And everybody just kind of giggled. And Stacey said, oh, well, when I got my boobs, I wanted to show them off, which is a fine statement, right? You can show your boobs to whoever you want when you get plastic surgery. But Sophie's body is not owned by Rob. Sophie can do whatever she wants to her body, and Rob has nothing to do with it. And it is disgusting that Sean insinuated that whatever Sophie does after their breakup has anything to do with Rob. That Rob owns Sophie's body in any way, shape, or form. It was sick. And that made me so mad. Yeah.
It was disappointing.
Yep.
I love mess. That I feel like really crossed a line in my opinion.
She needs to be fired. No.
No, and I'm not kidding. A lot online. Yeah. No, I agree with you. A lot of people feel that exact way online. Then they go on to, so they'd gone to Disneyland, then they started hooking up, and then they were officially separated, seeing other people. He starts dating a British girl like 3 months later, which, feels a little weird. And he was like, well, I saw being British as a red flag. I'm like, sure you did. Because I'm sure there's like a ton of British girls running around Texas. Just saying. And then Rob was like, you got to tell the story. It's funny. And to be fair, he was right. It is a funny story. Sophie starts dating two people. She dates a guy and she dates a girl. Because she's bi. We remember that from season that she was on. And it turns out the guy that she was dating has a kid. And then also it turned out that the woman that she was dating had a kid. Yeah. And then you find out that the kid is the same kid. Because the dad and the mom were separately dating Sophie. And she didn't find out until too late. Well, I mean, who knows too late? She didn't find out until after they started dating that the kid was the same kid. And it's just a weird coincidence.
I thought it was funny.
I thought that was fun. Yeah. Sophie does say that she thinks it's going to be healthiest for them to not speak because right now they're still married. Even though they're separated, when she's filling out a form, she's marking married. Yeah. She's saying that that's her husband. Yep. But she's also kind of looking at the divorce to be that final closure and not speak with Rob anymore. I don't know if she's going to be able to stand by that. Rob loves mess, and I think she's still young enough to not realize that she's participating in the mess fully. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then fucking Jasmine needing attention during Between the Sheets tapings. I guess she had mentioned, she was talking to somebody and was talking about how Sophie had a sugar daddy. Rob said that he's the one that started that rumor, but it was actually just a joke, offhand comment that he made to Jasmine because he doesn't know where Sophie's getting the money to survive and keep herself afloat right now. And he's like, maybe she's got a sugar daddy. And so he says that that's where it came from. Who knows if it's true or not? Isn't she like an Instagram model? Isn't she probably getting her money from there?
And once again, we have a man that decides that because a woman is not with him, she cannot live and she cannot function and she cannot pay her own bills because he is not in the picture. Are you fucking kidding me? So what does he do? He spreads a rumor that she has a sugar daddy. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Yes, she's an Instagram influencer. She probably gets her money doing that. So, yes, she can support herself, sir, without you. End of story.
Then everyone just starts yelling at each other about that. Jasmine's going, oh no. I think, was she doing a Natalie accent?
I think so.
Because she was not doing her own accent, but she was rolling her R's. I can't roll my R's. Can you roll your R's?
I can roll my R's.
Roll your R's.
I'm so sorry. Really? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can't do that. I can't do it. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
I need to not do that on camera.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. But yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
She was saying, I'm sorry I ruined your marriage. And they're all talking about who ruined Rob's marriage. And Sophie goes, everybody but Rob ruined our marriage. Which I thought was
funny.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they're going to be done. I really hope Sophie cuts things and moves forward. Because Rob's just going to Rob. I don't see him having real change. I feel like he is Diet Coke Jax Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, he sucks.
Sucks.
Oh, speaking of sucky men, and it kills me to say this because I've really been on his side.
I know.
Florian and Stacey. Florian has really just fallen right back into old habits.
Well, I mean, can you blame him? He had to go home with Stacey and Darcy.
Oh, shit.
I'm sorry, but seriously, he had nowhere to go but down. I mean, literally. I feel bad for him. Not to excuse anything that he's ever done, don't get me wrong, but he did not act appropriately in this tell-all. He did not have the appropriate answers at all. Don't get me wrong.
Like, you and I, through this, have been very forgiving of Florian. And have often been, even when he's misbehaving, on Team Florian.
Yes.
Because we're like, somebody poked the bear. Yeah. Unfortunately, in the tell-all, he's like, yes, I scream at women. They poked the bear. If they didn't talk to me, he literally said, then I wouldn't have screamed at them. Don't poke the bear. And I was oh, Florian. And at first I was like, oh, the producers are kind of setting him up. And I was like, no, that's just all shit that he did.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. So he says that he sees how the therapy maybe helped Stacey, but the therapy meant nothing to him. He's never believed in it. And he, I guess in his mind, was like, I'm great. And if Stacey needed that therapy to help her be better, then great. But yeah, everything between us sucks. And he said, I think like everything is going down every day. Like he is just throwing in the towel.
Sorry, it's so fucking funny. It's not funny, but it is funny because he truly believes that.
Yeah. And Stacey's like, so you're saying that because the therapy didn't fix me, that I'm the reason this... And he was like,
yep.
I don't know. It was...
Oh my God.
It was shit. It was really
Where's
bad.
Heidi? I want Heidi to come out and be like, Florian, that's not appropriate.
Somebody needs to shake him. Well, I love Stacey. I think she's kooky, but I think she's in the right place overall. Mm-hmm. She ends up being so open and so vulnerable. And she says, it's been really crappy. We haven't had sex in 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, I'm going through menopause. And she just breaks down. Mm-hmm. And I am realizing that the clock is ticking for me. And I don't actually know that much about menopause. And I'm a little bit scared of it because all I hear about menopause is how little it's being studied. So do you want to, they ask, here's, I'm giving you the intro of, they ask Florian, do you know what menopause is? And I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was something along the lines of, I don't fucking know. What is a menopause? What is it? I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And then Rob starts to explain what menopause is.
Yeah.
And he does say, like, just disclaimer, I don't know everything. Yeah. And he didn't do terrible, but it was like baby's first sentence of menopause. So do you want to talk about it?
Well, just so you know, friend to friend, you should be scared.
Okay. Oh, fuck.
You should be scared. And I have had lots of talks with my daughter about it. My daughter's going to be 30. And that's when I noticed. So I'm 52. And that's when I noticed a lot of things starting to go downhill. And I'm not being funny. I'm not trying to be jokey. That's when things start to go downhill. And things start to, you're like, wow, that's weird. Well, that wasn't like that before. And so I'm trying to really get my daughter to recognize things in her life and go and not just push it under the rug and go that, okay, I'm not going to worry about that, or I'm not going to talk to my doctor about that, or I'm not going to talk to my husband about that, or whatever the situation is, because it is very serious. People are very ashamed. They don't want to talk about it. And women should not feel ashamed to talk about it. But yes, I have been through menopause and I'm on hormone therapy. It has changed my life. It has changed my husband's life. Just so you know. And it is the best thing. Hormone replacement therapy is the best thing on the planet because menopause completely demolishes a woman's hormones. Your hormones are completely gone. Your estrogen, progesterone, and your testosterone are completely gone from your body. And that's what makes you happy. That's what makes you sleepy. And that's what makes you want to actually live your life and wants you to be with your family and want you to be intimate with your husband and want you to get up and go to work every single day. And I'm not trying to be funny. It is actually,
no, I don't.
These things are what makes a woman, and what inside of our body tells us what to do. And it's really difficult for men to understand that. And when we don't have that anymore, it's literally a barren desert and a cavern in there. We don't know how to function. We have hot flashes. We cry all the time. We can't sleep. We gain weight. We don't want to eat, or we eat all the time. And we don't want to have anything to do with our husband, our kids, our work. And on top of that, you don't know why. Nobody tells you what's going on. Nobody prepares you. Our mothers didn't look at us and go, this is what's going to happen. Nobody sat me down and said, this is what's going to happen at this age. This slowly will happen one by one. And at the end, it will be like a bomb will go off. And all of these things will happen at once. And then basically it will feel like your life is over. And then you're going to go to the doctor, and you're going to have to find the right doctor, because a lot of doctors aren't going to believe you. Just so you know.
Yeah.
You will have to find the right doctor.
With how it's being talked about, mostly through social media. I mean, I feel like I'm hearing a lot about it through social media, but like never really having a conversation about it before. And outside of the context of like, if I ever had a boss that I was having issues with that was a woman, or any other situations with a woman that I would complain to Grandma Darlene about.
Yeah.
And Grandma would go, oh, she's going through menopause. And so it was just automatically this, oh, she's a bitch because menopause. Which, you know, there's maybe an unnuanced truth in that. But also like, oh, she's clearly going through shit. But instead it's like you were almost... that generation of women, it was their fault. They're going through. It's exactly like a way more intense version of, oh, she's on her period.
Yeah. Yes. But they did not have a doctor that would help them.
That's, well, yeah, because no one cares.
Nope.
Or at that time, like it wasn't considered a serious thing. Yeah. It was this idea of like, that's just a woman's problem. It's not, it's a natural thing that for some reason is also their fault, even though they have no control over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yes,
Stacey's clearly going through some shit. And Sean, I think, was kind to her about that. But all of the other women are much younger than her in this. You know, they're not going through it. So no one really knows. And like, as I'm 39 and I just went like, this just seems scary.
It's scary. You should be scared. Call me anytime and have Matt call me anytime. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
You know he will. I will force him. I'll just like give him the phone.
Yeah. Because honestly, we ourselves as women don't know what's happening, because it's really, like you said, it's a version of you being on your period that is so aggravated that it is out of control. And you go to the doctor. And it can
last like a decade.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, it lasts.
It's a process. It's not.
It's the rest of your life. I'm not joking.
Oh.
It doesn't end.
Shit.
It's the rest of your life. So when you go to the doctor and you have your labs and your blood and your hormones checked, and you go from having, you know, whatever, say your estrogen level is a 5 and now it's a 0. Okay, that's obviously a problem, right? I don't know what the estrogen levels, I just picked that number. So it's a 0 now. So now you have nothing. That's a problem. You have to have something. So then the doctor will give you that back in whatever form, and you will instantaneously feel better. So your husband will have to be kind and understanding to let you figure that out. But you have to also be kind to yourself, to go to the doctor, talk to the doctor. And if that doctor doesn't help you, go to someone else. I had to find three that would listen to me, because the first 2 were like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, no, there's something wrong with me. Please help me. So I had to find the third one that actually helped me. And then I went through a lot of different types of hormone therapy for my body type. that would take in the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Because just taking a pill, my body would not absorb it for
like
whatever
how your
reason.
body absorbs it and processes it.
Yeah, there's creams, there's pills, there's pellets, there's all kinds of different ways to do that for your body. Now that you don't have those things inside anymore, you have to obviously take it from the outside, and now your body's like, this is synthetic, I don't like it, and you have to figure out which way your body is going to do that. So it takes a process, and your husband has to be patient with that and understanding. So it's something.
And clearly, Florian is not.
No.
Florian is, I mean, if he was dismissive of anything more than therapy and Jasmine, it was clearly menopause. Like, he doesn't really want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, poor Stacey. And in that, he's like, look at her, she's acting crazy. Then they do a montage of him just getting in fights with everybody and losing his cool, which was kind of uncomfortable to watch one after the other after the other. And they're like, so your anger issues? And he's like, I don't have anger issues. And at that point, even Gina was like rubbing his back and going, I think you might have anger.
I know Florian goes, being mad and having anger issues are two different things.
But if you're mad all of the time that quickly. And Josh was trying to therapize him at the same time too. He was like, you're just very reactive, man. You need to speak softer to your lady. And you're like, shut the fuck up, Josh. You're not supposed to be on my TV anymore. Ugh.
Yeah.
But then they bring out Darcy and Georgie for no good reason. And it was a perfect, within 15 seconds, you watch the whole thing happen again with these sisters. So Darcy comes out looking like the lion lady. And the dress was very cool. They were very well done. It looked very cute. But then the sister saying hi to everybody, and then the sisters are like, hey, come here, you look great, twin power, or like whatever they said. But they were cheering each other on and hugging each other, and then they sit down and they're like, you're a bitch. It was just their ability to flip so quickly on each other. It was insane. Yeah. And I think they don't even realize how they do that to each other.
Right. Well,
because they can see it with everybody else, but they can't see it with themselves.
Not to excuse Florian, but he lives in that. I mean, imagine having to live there. I mean, oh my
exhausting.
God. Yeah.
Right. Are you in a fight or are you not in a fight?
Right.
You just hugged and then you call her a bitch. Right. Like, I can't tell.
Right. Hello.
I can't tell.
What are we doing?
So, but they're twins, so maybe they're both in menopause right now.
Yeah, that's true.
They do like 2 seconds of an interview with them. Darcy's like, I thought this was really going to help them. And then she says, it sounded like corporate buzzwords. I thought that they were going to take this time to evolve and they're going to transition into a healthier place together. And did that happen? She's like, no, that didn't happen. And they were like, well, do you think that your relationship with Florian was inappropriate? And she was like, no, and Stacey never really said that she wasn't cool with it. And I was like,
gaslighter. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, and she's like, and you called Georgie. And she's like, I've never fucking called Georgie. And Georgie's like, I don't care if my wife is hanging out with Florian. Probably because he gets a break.
Oh my God, right?
Right?
Right? Yeah.
Then he also says that he doesn't really think that Stacey should be able to trust Florian. And that was the end of the episode.
That was the end, yeah.
It was a whole thing. That just... I don't even know what are they going to have for us. We're going to have Ari and Benny next.
Yes. Ari and Benny. Oh, and then Natalie and Josh. And Josh's secret hideaway girlfriend. I don't know. That's
I'm so looking forward to this just coming to an end.
No.
Am I going to watch Single Life? Of course I am. We just might not talk about it.
Right. That's so true. We might not talk about it.
So that's where we're at. If you feel like we were being too hard on someone or you feel like we're siding with someone who doesn't deserve it, tell us why. Because I am not opposed to changing my mind on anybody at this point.
Yeah.
everyone's kind of bad. Everyone kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Even Julia was like, one person here who doesn't
innocent?
suck a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, give it to me.
Ugh.
Everybody but Sean. Sean needs to be fired.
Sean's the worst.
She is.
Sean's not the worst. Wait, who is the worst? Who's the worst? Is it Josh or is it Rob?
Rob. I think it's Rob. Yeah, I think it's Rob.
Matt and I have this discussion a lot. Is it the asshole that knows they're being an asshole worse? Or is it the asshole that isn't aware that they're being an asshole? Which one is worse?
Who isn't aware? Which one?
I think Rob isn't aware that he's being an asshole. I think Josh knows that he's an asshole, but he's trying to be manipulative. I think Rob genuinely believes in his victim complex. I think he genuinely believes that he is not appreciated enough. I think he genuinely believes that Sophie getting hotter since they broke up is something painful for him that we all need to recognize, that kind of shit. Sophie said everyone is responsible for ruining their marriage except for Rob. I don't think he knows how to take responsibility. I don't think he thinks he's an asshole.
No.
I don't think I've seen him take responsibility for anything in the show ever.
No, I don't think he has either. But I also think he says those horrible things and does all of that mean stuff on purpose. I think he knows what he's doing. Right, with the whole Jasmine stuff last week. I think he baits people and does that on purpose. Calling her a pregnant whore and all of that. He knows people's buttons and does that on purpose. This is the same guy that he wouldn't buy Sophie a ranch because it was $1. He wouldn't buy her toilet paper. He wouldn't buy her a duvet because it was too fancy.
She's spoiled.
She's spoiled. I mean, I don't understand this man. But Sophie is the whiny one. I don't know. I'm not saying she's great or anything. I'm not making excuses for her, but
Sophie, I think, is going to grow out of the parts of her that suck right now.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
I hope.
And
there's still hope for Sophie. There's not hope for
late
Mom.
30s, right? I mean, he's old.
Yeah. I think he's my age. He's close to my age. He is
who he is. So
yeah. Well, and there's no I want to do better.
Yeah.
In him.
Right.
That's
what I mean.
Believe that change is possible, but he's not interested in it. So then, not for him. No change for Rob.
Yeah, that's why I'm sticking with Rob.
Okay.
I don't know.
Speaking of terrible people,
terrible.
Do you want to talk about murder?
Murder. Okay.
So you sent this to me and told me to watch it. How many times have you watched this documentary? Just twice?
Yeah, I just watched it twice. Well, I mean, just twice. I don't know. Yeah, I watched it twice.
Had you heard about this before watching the documentary?
Yes. Have you?
No.
Really? At all?
No. Mm-mm.
You're kidding.
No, I told you. Okay. Disclaimer about Jen Cheney and these documentaries. I watch them when you tell me to. I am so swayed by every documentary that I watch. And I don't engage in too much murder news. I was very into political news, but murder news, not so much into. And so then I would watch a documentary about it. And I had taken years off of watching murder documentaries.
Okay.
And then the Hulu one with Casey Anthony, where Casey Anthony gives her perspective on things.
Here we go.
I hadn't really followed the Casey Anthony story.
And she lives in Florida, people.
She lives not that far from me. But I hadn't really I knew that she was not convicted of killing her daughter. That's all I knew. And that it was a big story. But I had little kids at the time, so I was like, oh no, this. And so then I was like, Matt and it came on, I was like, Matt, people are talking about it. I haven't really listened to any of it. I think I should just watch it and get perspective there. And so we watched it. He doesn't like that kind of stuff, but we did watch it. And I was like, poor Casey Anthony. And then anytime that it got brought up and I started to talk about it, people were like, you fucking idiot bitch. How dare you? Don't ever. By the way, I have made the horrible mistake of taking Casey Anthony's side ever so lightly in a conversation, and I have never been so wrong in my life. I'm dumb is the problem. I'm not dumb, but if you tell me something, I will mostly believe you unless you're on 90 Day Fiancé. I will take your word for it. And so I was like, yeah, Casey Anthony really got done dirty. And they were like, what? She murdered her child, you sicko. And I was like, oh, wait, I think I'm missing some information here. So yeah, I don't watch that many because I always watch the wrong ones until now, because the only ones I'm going to watch are the ones that you tell me to.
Okay. All right.
And on that note, do you want to tell us about?
My God! Wow! No, yeah. I think she does believe that this Long Island killer did kill these people.
I do believe.
Okay.
I do believe.
Just disclaimer. I think she does believe. This is about the Long Island serial killer, otherwise known as the Gilgo Beach serial killer. They start out in 2010, where they have a 911 call from a gal named Shannon, and we hear her saying somebody's trying to kill her, and she's running. And the 911 dispatcher is trying to get some more information, saying who's killing you, who's trying to kill you, where are you? And she's really not giving them a lot of information. She's just running, and then the phone call ends. So then we get some more information about Shannon, and she is an escort. She works for herself, and she has her own driver named Michael Pack. And on this night, May 1st in 2010, she gets a call from a client named Joe Brewer on Oak Beach in Long Island about 2 o'clock in the morning. She has her driver drive out there, and she goes inside this gentleman's home for a couple of hours, and her driver Michael is staying in the car in the driveway waiting for her to come out. About 2.5, 3 hours later, the client, Joe Brewer, comes out banging on the window of the car saying, hey, this woman won't get out of my house. You got to help me. They go back in the house. They try and grab Shannon. She is really upset. She runs out of the house, and apparently that's when she is calling 911. She has some sort of breakdown. She goes to a neighbor's house, knocks on the door, says the same thing. People are trying to kill her. The neighbor lets her in. She sits down. The neighbor calls 911, says, hey, there's this person here. I don't know what's going on. She says people are trying to kill her. He turns around, and she then leaves his house and is running around his yard, kind of hiding behind a boat and crouching around. She thinks people are following her. And then her driver, Michael, gets out of the car and tries to find her, runs down the road, does a little bit of a search, right? Looks around the road, doesn't find her, gets in his car and kind of just drives away. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and just kind of drives away. And so, so then her mom, Mary, reports her missing, and the police at that time are like, well, you know, she is a prostitute. She's an escort. They don't really do anything about it. They don't really care. They basically laugh at the mom and say, you know, nobody's going to miss her. She's just a prostitute.
She'll show up.
She's
allowed to disappear. She's an adult.
Yeah.
You know what she does.
Yeah.
And the mom I really loved.
Yeah.
The mom, Mary Gilbert, she becomes such a big part of this story, and it's because she immediately takes action. And she immediately forces this to be in the public eye. She is getting the media involved from day one, over and over and over again, until she gets something from them. And I feel like that is something that's becoming more common, as you see the moms being like, I'm not going to let you forget about this. I'm not going to let this get swept up and lost. You're going to keep looking. And unfortunately, like, as hard as this mom fights, it just becomes such a through message of this is just how these women are just discarded.
Yeah.
And just they're disposable, which was really horrific.
Yes, because of the profession or what they choose to do to earn money. People in the police judge them or not choose to care to find them, I guess, when they go missing. So finally, in December, Mary, Shannon's mom, says, look, it's going to be snowing and freezing. Please do something. So they start to search. They finally say, fine, we'll look for her. Between May and December, they finally do something. And they find an intact skeleton wrapped in a burlap. They think that it might be Shannon, but Shannon does have a titanium plate in her jaw. And so they're thinking, okay, if we find this, then it's her. Well, they don't find this titanium plate in her jaw on the skeleton, so it is not Shannon. So they find someone else, and they're thinking, oh my God, who is this? 2 days later, that was December 11th, 2 days later on December 13th, they find 3 more intact skeletons along the same stretch of this beach. They were all bound in burlap, and none of them were Shannon Gilbert. None of them. So now they have 4 bodies, 4 intact skeletons wrapped in burlap along this beach, along the side of the highway. And so the FBI has come in to help the police. And apparently this beach is salt water and it's mucky. And so, these bodies are pretty badly decomposed. And in the early 2000s, right, they don't have a whole lot of DNA that they can do to figure out who these people are. There's just not a lot left of these bodies, with human remains. They didn't match up with missing persons in these police database. They start looking elsewhere for prostitutes and escorts because it's not, I guess, what you would call normal missing persons. And they start to tell us the other victims and the other families. They introduce us to the rest of the victims. 2007, a girl named Maureen Brainerd Barnes, she went missing in New York City. She was doing some modeling, but her and her friend Sarah were doing escorting on Craigslist. They were working for themselves, and they were living in Connecticut, but they would go into the city and do escorting. All they had for protection was their cell phone, and they had a pocket knife, and that's just what they did. They were 18 years old, and they thought it would make them resourceful and independent, and they really actually enjoyed doing that.
Her friend Sarah, because they did the buddy system, because they made rules to try and keep each other safe.
Yeah.
With the cell phones, they'd get a hotel room. Yeah. They would check in on each other, and they would do these girlfriend experiences. So going and acting like your girlfriend, boyfriend. And so it's this ideally less intense experience. Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah. The thing that's so awful is these girls are on their own. They're trying to be financially independent, but they're still so young. What happened to Maureen is she was about to get evicted, had to come up with $3,000. They spent a weekend in New York, and they were doing the buddy system. Yeah. And then her friend's like, I've got to go home. I can't stay here. Maureen is like, I've got to get a little bit more money. I'm going to just stay another day or two. Yeah. And of course, the friend never saw her again. She clearly feels so much guilt about that. Yeah. And very sad to me because Maureen's sister tries to find her missing sister. She's got information from Sarah. This is back in the day that they don't have anything but like MapQuest. They don't have GPS. They have pictures. They're walking around Manhattan. Her brother-in-law, they're trying to talk to the police, but they won't put her on the missing persons registry. Yep. Because the second that the words prostitute or escort or girlfriend experience come up, whatever it is that they said, the authorities dismiss it because these women are, like I said, disposable, and it's so horrific and sad. The other two women that were found there are Melissa Bartolome, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. When all of this happens, of course, there's like the media frenzy of it. One of the things that I'm laughing, it's not funny. One of the things that the commissioner comes out and says, okay, we've got these bodies. It looks like, everyone's freaking out about a serial killer. It looks like they could have all been killed by the same person. But these women were all engaged in high-risk business. Their deaths are directly related to that business, which made people feel safer because they weren't prostitutes.
Yeah. So you have this old, sexist, judgmental white guy going, these are just basically prostitutes, and if you're not a prostitute, you're fine. Just no, we don't really care. This guy's not really going to care, so just everybody go about your business. It's probably just one guy out there, and it's not a big deal. So, and it was really not great to listen to. It was really awful, I'm sure, for these families to listen to. Well, after they find these 4 bodies, they do go back to the driver and the client of Shannon Gilbert to see maybe if they actually have anything to do with it. They search their home, they give them a polygraph, and these men are fine. They don't find anything on these men. Their story checks out. So these 2 men, Mr. Pack and Mr. Brewer, don't have anything to do with these 4 women or Shannon's disappearance. So they're still kind of stuck with that.
So they don't do any of that until well into May that they investigate these guys. So it's almost like a year after they got that call from Shannon. Yeah. It was over 8 months before they really searched. Yeah. And then they have to then delay it even more because the ground is frozen solid and they can't get out there.
So Melissa went missing in July of 2009. Megan went missing in June of 2010. Maureen was in July 2007. Amber went missing in September of 2010. Amber's story was really interesting. She lived in a house with a bunch of friends, with 2 male friends that we got to listen to. She had put an ad on Craigslist, and this gentleman had answered her ad. The 2 housemates that lived with her had listened to her talk on the phone. They had heard her, and this person had convinced her to go on this date and leave her cell phone at home. And that was never part of what she did as a part of her, I guess, job or what she offered for her services. As part of her protection, her own protection, right? She would take her phone, but he, for some reason, convinced her to leave her phone at home and walked away. Most of her work, like I said, was done at home. And these 2 men could not understand. Her housemates were so shocked that she just walked off, never came back.
And left all of her stuff, which she would never do. Yeah. I mean, who leaves their house? Even when I'm just going to go for a walk around my neighborhood, I have my cell phone on me. Amber's story was, like you said, very interesting because unlike Shannon, unlike Maureen, she was doing her business outside of her home. Mm-hmm. And the guys that she lived with, one of the guys is named Bear, and he's got a tattoo across his jaw. Yeah. And the other guy is like this big, bald-headed, bearded guy. He seemed very protective and terrifying. Yeah. Like, if I was going to be doing that out of my house, I would want that to be my roommate that's going to rack me up. Yeah, So she would do dances for people. Yeah. In her.
That was another part of her service. I guess there was another incident where she was alone in the home and both of these gentlemen were gone, and she had a call come to the home, and her 2 housemates knew that this call was coming, and she was just going to do a dance for this call, and it was no sex, but this gentleman would not take no for an answer, so she locked herself in the bathroom and called Dave, who was the tall, bearded gentleman, and said, come home right now. He won't leave. Dave burst through the door and confronted this call and said, hey, get out of my house. And Bear was there, came home with the pit bull and said, hey, I'm going to let the dog loose if you don't leave. They said that this guy was a huge beast of a gentleman, 6'8", and was very intimidating and wouldn't look at them and kind of looked past them, just stared at her the whole time.
Yeah. Even as they're physically having to wrestle this guy out of their house, his eyes were fixated on her and he never stopped looking at her. Yeah. He had dead eyes, but they were going. So it sounded just very creepy. Again, it's one of those things where when Amber went missing, the guys that she lived with are getting interviewed. Yeah. And they're like, you should check out this guy. Yeah. He looked like an ogre. Yeah. He was a giant. He had a very specific car. You should check this out. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, okay. And then they did nothing. They didn't really look into this until they found her body. They found her body over a year after she died. Yeah. 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 Melissa's story, she lived in New York. She was a hairdresser, moved to New York, and was just waiting for her date on the stoop. She never came home. Megan's story was she left a hotel, was last time seen in a hotel, and left to for a call, was seen on camera at a hotel, and never was seen again. The Marine's friend had been getting calls saying that we had found her. Yes. But it was from a blocked number, so she could never get that tracked, and no one was helping her track that down. Yes. Then there was Melissa's sister who starts getting calls saying, you're a half-breed. Yes. Just lots of gross, racially, sexually charged things that they're saying to this girl. She's a little girl. I think she was in junior high or high school when her sister disappeared. And we're like, you need to change your name. You need to block your number. You need to not be on the internet. Yeah. And she spent her entire life hearing that and going, for your safety, this guy is telling you what he did to your sister. Mm-hmm. He said that he's watching your sister's body rot. She decides, I am going to stay public. I am going to stay accessible, because any time that he reaches out to me is a chance to catch him. Yeah. And that's her whole life, is she's literally putting herself on Facebook, on Instagram, hoping that the killer torturer of her sister can get caught. What a horrible way to grow up. So sad. Yeah. Oh. In May, everything thaws out. Yes. May 2011. And they get a new mayor. They call it a county executive. I had to Google that. Did you know what a county executive was? I still don't know. Tell me. It's a mayor. I Googled it. Oh. Yeah. Okay. They got a new county executive because these two gentlemen, the district attorney and the police commissioner, hated each other and were publicly fighting at press conferences about whether it was one killer or more killers. And it was really ridiculous, and it was just embarrassing for everybody to watch. And so the police commissioner retired, and this new county executive came into office, which is a mayor, everybody. So the new mayor came in. Then I'm just going to say mayor because I don't like saying county executive. The new mayor came in, and he appointed a new police commissioner. So now we have the sitting, district attorney or prosecutor and a new police commissioner. So then what do? A new search for Shannon in spring of 2011. And they find 3 sets of human remains, and they find a head, and they find a set of hands. So now we are up to 10 sets of human remains that have been discovered along this beach. I mean, they just keep finding shit. And still no Shannon. Still no Shannon. And the excuse that they gave for this a couple times is that it's too harsh of conditions. Yes. Which they show footage of when these searches were done. I mean, the marsh, the reeds are above your head. Yes. One side is the ocean, the other is the marsh. So it does look insane. They are saying that they walk through, then all of a sudden you'll take a step and then you're up to your shoulders in the water. So definitely treacherous. They also keep saying we don't have the resources for this, which, you come to find out they had more money coming in than any other police precinct in the country. They were the most well-funded police precinct in the country. Got it. But yeah, so they have the resources more than anyone else would have those resources. Yeah. We had the former police chief commissioner was saying, this looks like one guy. Yeah. And then the other guy's like, I don't know. It seems like it could be several guys. Let's be honest. Yeah. He doesn't want to acknowledge that Shannon could be connected to these other women that were found in burlap sacks. Yes. Because they haven't found her yet. So who knows? As well as all of these other murders. He's like, not everything is exactly the same. So we can't assume these things. Yeah. Then he becomes a higher up who gets to delegate who he wants in what position. Yeah. So of course he's going to pick somebody that agrees with him and his theory. So a big part of the story turns into the new mayor and how he really affects this investigation because of how the people that he puts in places of power. 19 months after Shannon goes missing, December 6th, they find her stuff in the marsh.
A pocketbook, ID, cell phone, and jeans. The jeans are the sticking point for everybody, which we need to talk about. Jeans, I think.
So December 13th, 2011 is the anniversary of finding the Gilgo 4. Yes. The original 4 bodies wrapped in burlap. Yeah. On that anniversary is when they find Shannon's body finally. And positively ID it. Which is a weird coincidence, but they don't really talk about it.
Yeah, they find her body in the marsh about a quarter mile away of where she was last seen, people. I mean, come on.
The last place she was seen, a quarter mile from it, it took them 19 months to find her.
Right. Body. And then they spin this story in a press conference that say, well, was she dumped there or did she run and accidentally fall down and then drowned? Like, what? Are you saying that she was so out of control and hysterics and then she drowned herself? And everybody was like, what are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense. And these men, they say that because she's not wearing jeans, everybody. They think that because she has taken off her jeans herself in the marsh because she got hot while she's flailing around in the water, drowning.
Yeah. Well, it's actually because she had paradoxical hypothermia, which, by the way, it's undetermined. They've decided it's undetermined how she died. What they think happened is she got so hot because she had hypothermia that she took her pants off. And every single person that is a woman is saying, what the actual fuck?
No.
She went missing in 2010.
Yeah.
What was the height of fashion in 2010? And what will I refuse to take off? I'm going to not stop wearing them. Skinny jeans. Yeah. Skinny jeans. Wet jeans of any kind are nearly impossible to get off.
Yep.
Wet skinny jeans?
No.
You don't get those off.
No.
By yourself in the marsh.
No.
That just doesn't make sense. A lot of people feel that this is willful ignorance and are really pissed off that that's what the mayor and the police chief are like, it was an accidental thing. I mean, we did find these bodies right next to there. Weird, but not linked. Because that was just, who knows what that was.
Yeah, because she took her own jeans off.
So the family, Mary, Shannon's mom, not cool with this at all. Yeah. Just really upset. She's still created a community of the families of these women. She's going to keep this in the media. She keeps getting them all together at the sites where these bodies are found. Yeah. She is making sure this stays top of mind for people. They end up hiring Dr. Michael Baden to do another autopsy. They want a second opinion. Yep. And he goes, none of what I'm looking at is consistent with death from natural causes. Yeah. Just one more thing of everyone going, God damn it.
Yep. And so that was the end of the first part. So they talked about the victims in the first episode. And then in the second episode, they talk about the police commissioner and the prosecutor or the district attorney and how they handled the case, which was shocking. And that's what I didn't know. I knew about the serial killer himself and I knew about the victims before the documentary, but I didn't know about. So we meet a journalist that says, this Suffolk County, where this Gilgo Beach is located, people that live there tell us all these conspiracy theories about the police and how there is prosecutorial misconduct, police misconduct, and nobody believed it until this journalist started looking into it. So the mayor, like you said, he elected or appointed the next chief of police. And his name is James Burke, that came in. He replaced Richard Dormer. So then you have Thomas Spoda as the prosecutor, and then James Burke came in. So then this journalist says, they tell us this background about Thomas Spoda, who has been a prosecutor with this Suffolk County since the 1970s. His first case was of this teenage boy that was found dead on a schoolyard that was trampled and beaten to death. He had stones stuffed down his throat, which was interesting, I guess, in a homicide. And he had a shoe print on his face. And in 1979, the police detectives say, well, who wears sneakers? And all they could come up with was children. Kids wear sneakers. Oh, okay. So then they start just random pulling kids off the street and trying to get confessions out of kids to see if they killed this teenage boy. They get this confession that doesn't make sense from this 15-year-old that confesses to killing this 13-year-old, but it doesn't make sense. And so this second boy comes in the picture, this 16-year-old. He tells a story that makes the other kid's confession make sense. And his name is Jimmy Burke. So that is how Thomas Spoda and Jimmy Burke know each other. And so for the next 30 years, these two men are basically linked together. And that is the story that we find out, that these two men are basically with each other, in this law enforcement county. So now they are running this county police agency together. Everything comes to a halt with this investigation, right? They don't let the FBI do anything. They make them pound sand. They kick their ass out. They don't let...
Which is crazy.
Yeah, they don't let anybody else in.
All of the collaboration that they were getting, the DNA work that, again, wasn't where it is today, was having to get processed through the FBI. Everything at this point is pen and paper. Files and everything, they're all physical files. Yep. So the manpower that you would need to get through this evidence to compare things, to work with other counties, because they have figured out, okay, the women that we have identified, they are not from Long Island, other than Amber. Yeah. They're escorts that are coming in from the city. It looks like they're probably starting off in Manhattan, coming here, but they're not doing any more work to try and track down where could these women be coming from. Yeah. If they're not coming from here, they're like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. The other thing that was so crazy to me that they brought up about that, they bring in the new mayor. I can't remember the mayor's name, but he does look like a Ken doll. And they were like, so when you appoint this new set of leadership and you make James Burke the chief of police, that was a 4-rank jump for him. Like that's not normal. He's like, well, Spoda, who is the DA, is who recommended him, and I trusted him. Yeah. He's knowledgeable about this. I'm going to trust his history in this department, and that's why I did that. I was like, you didn't even think about it? You didn't question it? You didn't look into this at all? And he didn't. He just went, yeah, sure. Yeah. That guy is now the new chief of police. So gross.
Yeah. And he could have just clicked open a computer and found that Jimmy Burke had numerous internal affairs investigations against him on file.
Over a dozen,
right, through the department, because this guy is a bad dude, right, and doesn't act right in the office. has a problem with other people. He doesn't play well with others, because when he was 16 years old, he sent someone to prison on a false accusation. That's the kind of person we're talking about. Leaning forward, now we find out that in the middle of this investigation, which basically has stopped, another sex worker comes forward and says, yeah, the chief of police, Jimmy Burke, called me and said, yeah, I want to use your services and do drugs with you. So she did a press conference and they opened an internal investigation because of her claim. And guess who represented him as his attorney? Thomas Spoda, the prosecutor. Which, why is that not a conflict of interest, people? I don't know.
Yeah. That seems not okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I would think he wouldn't be able to do that, but
I do love they showed the press conference with her and the lawyer. All of this happened in April of 2011. Yeah. So this is right after the change of guard and all this. So he's in trouble right away. Yeah. Right? And she's like, we start doing stuff. He was super aggressive. He kept trying to choke me. They were asking her questions, and then she'd be like, he choked me. And I was like, well, that was not what we asked you, but good information. But he kept telling her that she wasn't a good whore and was violent with her. Yeah. He also has allegations of drugs. I think she said that they did drugs together. Yeah. There's also multiple allegations of him engaging in hiring prostitutes. No. Although he denies this, but they said that when they were talking about the Gilgo Beach women, that he considered those misdemeanor murder because they didn't really count as people.
They wouldn't be taken serious.
And this is a county, best funded county for police in the United States. No. You think that they would want to be a little bit more buttoned up about things. Right? Mm-hmm. You'd think that there would be an eye on there, and there's just not. No. But everybody has, people in Suffolk County have conspiracy theories about all of them and openly talk about it. Yep. It's just allowed to keep going on.
Yep, because nobody's doing anything about it. That's why they see that nobody's doing anything about it, and so that's why they talk about it, and that's why they know what's going on. It's just shocking. It's really, really sad. Then we have December 2012. We have a petty criminal named Christopher Loeb. He is a petty thief. He's addicted to heroin. He breaks into cars. One day he breaks into a GMC Yukon. He steals a duffel bag. It's full of pornography. It's got sex toys. Oh, and it has a union card that
and a gun belt.
Yep. That we find out belongs to, the chief of police, Jimmy Burke. It is Jimmy Burke's GMC Yukon that he breaks into. They arrest him. Everybody descends on the police station to this poor meth head, which I never thought I'd say that sentence out loud, but this kid, right?
Unlucky.
Yep.
Deeply unlucky.
Yep. They descend on this kid.
If you're gonna, he robbed the worst car.
Oh yeah.
He could have robbed.
Yep. Wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. Poor guy.
He's in the police station. One of the things that we didn't mention earlier is even back in the 70s, when Spoda first started out being a DA, and that case that we talked about with that poor boy that was murdered, they had a 95% confession rate. Yes. So how crazy is that? Is that insane?
Yeah, that's not normal. That's not a thing. You don't do that.
Because they were beating people up.
Yep.
And I guess that continued all the way up until 2012 and probably who knows how long, much longer. But Loeb gets his ass kicked, right? He says that he was chained to the floor for 10 hours. Yep. He does press conferences talking about this, and his face was messed up. Yeah. Just giant black and blue lips. Yep. His eyes are all... Ugh. And they said that they were going to kill him, and they were going to rape his mom and kill his mom. Just really, really, really bad. Yep. All of that comes out, and you have to deal with this at this point, right? So why is nothing getting done about these women whose bodies they've found, these 10, 11 bodies at this point. It's because they're trying to keep Jimmy Burke out of prison for some reason, but it's this wall. They keep calling it the blue wall of internally they all join together and refuse to speak and don't say anything. Yeah. They end up investigating this situation with Loeb getting the shit kicked out of him for like 3 years. Yeah. But they finally arrest him in December of 2015.
Yep, he gets arrested December 2015. He is arrested and charged for civil rights violation, obstruction of justice, and he is sentenced and served 4 years in federal prison. As a part of that, they do an investigation on the prosecutor, Thomas Spoda. He gets charged with obstruction of justice as well. He is found guilty and is sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. So, thank goodness for that.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Yeah. So, they clean house out of that. They have the first woman, Geraldine Hart, comes in as the police commissioner. She gets
and she's super cool.
Yep, whole new staff in there.
I really liked her. Yep. So she's also one of the people that took down Jimmy Burke. When she started interviewing him, he was like, yeah, I've been meaning to come talk to you about, because they'd put up that wall, right? Even before, when their policies, the second that they get in, they're like, if you outside law enforcement tries to talk with you, immediately get one of the higher ups to deal with it. You don't talk to them, you get a higher up. They were like, hey, feds, hey FBI, I know that you are paying for everything and you have all of the best tools and all of the best resources. We're good. We don't want any of it. And the FBI is like, the fuck? But like, talk to us. And they're like, no. And so finally, the FBI is like, oh, look, you're a piece of shit. And we're going to interview you about how big of a piece of shit you are. And he's like, yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you guys. And she's like, fuck you. And then she gets Thomas Spoda's job. Yep. It's awesome. She's very cool. Yeah. I really like her.
Yeah. That was good. Perfect.
As they've cleaned house, can I just talk about the one thing that she did that I like the best?
Yeah.
Now we're in 2015. Technology has gotten more impressive. And they actually start using, for the first time, in this case, the first time that genetic genealogy is used. They can take data. This is when, and there's different feelings on it, but how everyone did like 23andMe and Ancestry.com and all that stuff. So they used that to narrow down who these people are and get genetic information on who they think the killer is. And that was the first time it was ever used. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. Yes, she did great. I liked her.
And that's how they identified Valerie Mack, who was Jane Doe number 6.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. Amber was technically the last victim to go missing. So they go back to her to see what they can find, if anything, about her case that will help them.
It's like, what is interesting and unique about that? Oh, he's 1 million feet tall, weighs well over 350 pounds.
And we know what car he drives.
Very unique.
Yeah.
And he has a unique vehicle.
Yeah. And so part 3, then it's all about who they find, about the serial killer. Then they find out who he is. And it only takes them 6 weeks to figure it out instead of 12 years. Now we're 12 years later. Yikes.
So I think it's fair to say that obviously technology played a huge part in being able to, they were using, in the beginning, they were using cell phone pings. Yes. That's what the FBI was really helping with at the beginning. Yeah. Now they've got all of this.
But they did have, in their defense, they did have Massapequa Park in the beginning. In 2010, they knew that's where that's where he was. So if they would have stayed on it, they probably,
even a little,
they would have had him in 2010. So yeah, February 2022, they have this task force. They've digitized everything. They go back to Amber's interview. She's the last victim to be seen. They talk to Dave and Bear, her housemates, about this 6'8" person in the Chevy Green Avalanche. And they're going back to the cell phone towers, and they narrow it down to...
Yeah, and Rodney Harrison is the new commissioner.
Yes.
It's like a whole nother team. So like as much as we loved the last commissioner,
Yes, she
or the last DA,
leaves.
She was great.
Yeah.
But new guy also really great.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually the guy that digitized everything.
Okay. In March 14th, 2022, they come up with the name Rex Heuerman. So that's who they are focusing on. And like I said, it took them 6 weeks from the time that Rodney Harrison, the new police commissioner, and Ray Tierney, the new prosecutor, came in for them to come up with a name to figure this out. And they find out that he resides in Massapequa Park, which is what I said in the beginning when they were pinging all the cell phone towers, which was true. So he lives in Massapequa Park. He works in New York City as an architect. And now they do like a year and a half of tracing him and watching him.
And they don't arrest him until July 13th of 2023.
Yeah.
They're literally following him, trying to get DNA evidence from him.
So they're watching his email accounts. They're watching all of his burner phones. He goes and he pays to put minutes on different burner phones. They finally get his DNA. They match it with 5 different hairs on some of the bodies that were found. They match it to Melissa, they match it to Megan, and they match it to Amber. And they arrest him.
It's only 3 people that he's officially charged with at that point.
Right.
They end up getting like 300 different subpoenas for evidence in his house. They take over his house. And they're there for several days.
Yeah.
Just digging everything up, tearing everything apart. Yes. And they ended up finding laptops and computers and stuff. Yeah. They also took more than 300 guns out of his house.
I know.
Which seems crazy.
I know.
And I'm not saying people shouldn't have guns, but that's like a crazy number.
Yeah, I don't want to say that he needs to use these guns in the commission of killing these women, but what are we doing?
Yeah, so he was a hunter, and it doesn't look like there was any evidence that he shot these women.
Yeah.
These guns weren't used on these women. He just got very intense about them for some reason.
Confused.
But his whole thing is confusing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, he's this massive dude.
Yes.
So he's very conspicuous.
Yeah.
He lives in Massapequa Park. So Long Island is known as the birthplace of suburbia. That's where people who lived in the city, then they would go build their houses, and that's where suburbia started and then like expanded.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a cool little tidbit fact I didn't know. But he is in this house with his wife and 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's his stepson and his daughter and his wife, Asa.
Yes.
And she's from Iceland.
Yes.
Yeah, they live together in this house. That house is the house that he grew up in. So he's been in this house. And it's a really cute older neighborhood. And then in the middle of this neighborhood is this dilapidated house. Like, he's living there with his family. He's an architect in Manhattan. He has his own architecture firm called RH Consultants. It doesn't make sense. The house that he lives in is dilapidated.
Yeah.
Like, he's never done anything to fix this house up. It looks like it's falling down around them. Because they were showing pictures, and it's like the houses around them looked very cute.
Yeah.
And the neighbors are like, yeah, kids, when they go trick-or-treating, they would skip their house. That guy was the scary guy. And that house seemed haunted. And also, we were like, hey, so-and-so, it looks like he might be the Gilgo murderer.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh, my God, right.
Like,
what?
Holy shit.
Oh, my God.
No one was shocked.
No.
No one was surprised by this. No one was like, oh, that's definitely the guy, other than Bear. But everyone else was like, oh, yeah,
Totes.
okay.
Exactly.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And, he's got his family there. How is he able to do these murders? And they line it all up. It all happened when he'd send his family on vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered that too.
The thing about it is, his family's also weird. Although it doesn't look like his family was involved or knew anything about this.
Yeah.
But his family comes back to the house, and I guess when your house gets raided by the police, they trash your house.
Oh, completely. And they don't clean it up.
Nope. No, they rip everything apart.
Yep, and they just walk away.
But the house was awful, and then it got super trashed by the police because they were in there for like a week or something. And then the family moves back in because I guess where else are they supposed to go? They're cooking on the front lawn and yelling at the news. Everything seemed like a little bit whacked out.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like she wants to acknowledge that her husband did this. I think she doesn't think he could be guilty of it.
It's got to be so difficult. I mean, therapy for the rest of your life kind of thing. That's just so awful. I mean, I would pack up my kids and move back to Iceland. I would not come here. I would not live here. I would not want anything to do with the United States. That would be just so horrible, so triggering, so awful. People would just want to talk to you and ask you questions, divorce and leave. That would be so hard. But yeah, you're right. She probably has nowhere to go. Doesn't know what to do. That's just horrible.
They've charged him with 3, right? Yes. And then through DNA, they start getting more information, and then they charge him with a couple more, and then they're able to link. They found like he had also had dropped parts of women in Manorville. Yes. And that all gets searched. Yep. That's where they found parts of Jessica Taylor. Yes. They link a murder from 1993 to him as well. Yes. Sandra Castilla.
Yeah, that was super interesting. And the way that the journalist put it, he said Rex spent 30 years murdering women. But there was a weird time gap where he had 10 years between Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor where he didn't murder anybody that we know of anyway, from 1993 to 2003. I don't believe that, but that's what the timeline shows. I don't believe it, but...
Yeah. They ended up going in again to his house. They got more subpoenas. And I think one of the things that just really just makes you feel sick is they found on his laptops, on his computers, he'd wiped them. Yeah. But they're still able to pull stuff out, and they found old planning documents that he was writing lists of supplies, equipment, tips and tricks, prep things that he would need, different dump sites that he had found, just giving himself ideas on how to get better. Things like, I'm going to destroy tattoos. He started removing the heads and hands. He's adapting and evolving. So when Spoda in the very beginning said, no, it's an isolated highway. It's probably multiple killers because look, it doesn't follow the same pattern. It was him getting better and better and learning every single time.
Right.
These women were disposable and dismissed, and it wasn't looked into. This Spoda guy decided he knew better than everyone else and didn't want to put resources into this. They were also able to link him to Valerie Mack, another one of the victims, in December of 2024. They don't have a date yet for his trial, but he's already said not guilty.
Of course, Yep, that's how that works. And again, with how big this case is, this is not unheard of for it to take years to go through all this evidence in years to set a trial date, only because they have so much paperwork to go through to be able to get it ready to go through trial. It's not because they're trying to make the families wait and trying to cause people harm or anything. It's just they have thousands and thousands and thousands of documents to go through. And they have a huge team of people saying, okay, you take that box and you take that box. And by doing that, then they create what they're going to do at a trial to present to the jury to be able to do that. I mean, it just takes so much time. And this trial could take, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to just put on, right, for the jury, just to sit there and say that. So it could be 2026 before we even see a jury on this case. So that's not completely...
And part of me, I really think that he is going to enjoy watching how he's hurt the families of the people that he murdered.
Yeah.
Because he was making those horrific calls. They said when they arrested him that he didn't seem surprised.
Oh, yeah.
At all by this.
Yeah, his mugshot was super scary. I mean, remember when Dave said he was kind of looking past him? That's what his mugshot looked like. There was nothing. There was no light behind those eyes. The attorney said if Spoda had done his job and looked for Shannon, 2 of the girls might have not been killed.
Megan Waterman and Amber might have been,
because they were right after Shannon. And that is just sickening to me. Because Shannon was right there the entire time. Her body was right there in the marsh. And even the one police officer said, we just didn't want to look there. We just didn't want to go there. This is the same guy that said, yeah, she probably killed her. She drowned herself and took off her own jeans. Because you don't want to go in that marsh. She took off her own jeans. This soaking.
Well, they were engaging in high-risk behavior. And I think it really is one of these situations where, and I don't love jumping on these generalizations, but look at how they are treating these women, how they are processing crimes against these women. I've said it again and again, disposable. They're treating these women as disposable. They're making these women responsible for the crimes against them, because they are sex workers. I want to know what you think about it, especially because I think you probably see this pop up in your job occasionally in the courts. I don't like how it's handled in our court system. I don't think that these women necessarily should be prosecuted for being sex workers. Or I wish that there was some way that we regulated it. I wish there were protections for these women. These women are doing this. They're providing a service. Whether it's something that you would partake in or not, there is a business out there for it. There's a demand. And they're trying to make money and support themselves. Distasteful or not, I don't feel comfortable making a judgment on that for them. The judgment I have is like, get your bag. Like, whatever, if that's what you want to do, and then fine. They're going out and they're having sex. They're going out and giving pleasure. But then we're saying it's their fault that they got the shit beat out of them. It's their fault that they are murdered because they put themselves in a dangerous position. Why are these women the bad guys in this scenario? It doesn't make sense to me that these women and men and these people that are sex workers are turned into these villains when it is the violence against them that is the truly horrific act, in my mind.
No, I completely agree. But on the other hand, why not think about the other side, the other person that's having sex with the sex worker? Why is that person not villainized? Why is that person not being arrested? Why is that person not shamed also? Why is that person not running around hiding, right? Why is the sex worker hiding? You know what I'm saying? The person, which is mostly a man, it takes 2 to have sex, people. I'm just saying, right? Why is it always the female sex worker that is the problem? There is a man that's sticking his dick in the female sex worker. Why isn't it his problem too? I just don't understand that. Why is she taking all the blame and not the guy that's sticking his dick in her? She's not doing everything by herself. She's not alone. And if you want to ask me about my job, I've only seen in the 20 years that I've worked there 1 prostitution case.
Really?
Only 1. And it was a citation. And she came to court and left. And I don't remember a whole lot of specifics. What I do see is sex trafficking. So that's the other side. That is different, whole nother story. I don't understand why we're prosecuting sex workers and why we're treating them the way that we are, why we are just not leaving them alone. If they are robbing people or stealing something or breaking property or doing something wrong, that's different. They are just in a room having sex and nobody's being bothered. That is completely their choice. Who cares? I don't care. What?
If it is a consensual business transaction, who gives a shit? I feel like we're in this weird time. I feel like a lot of things are going backwards for women right now.
Oh, yeah.
Not to get political. Oh, yeah. But I think that it's obvious that we're also at a time that, like, you and I both follow What's-Her-Face on Instagram. And she's a sex worker that travels around the world and tells us stories about it. she seems pretty chill with what she's doing. I don't know what the correct, I'm not educated enough in what would be the safest, best policy. I think there's probably a lot of opinions on it, but like, if it was more regulated, like in Nevada, it's more regulated. Women are getting, you know, health checks, and they're typically in more safe situations that are a little bit more monitored. Conduct your business how you want to conduct your business. If you're doing good business, then I thought that we were a capitalist society. Why are we not promoting this? Not promoting it, but like, why are we not letting people do what they want to do?
Just do what you want to do.
And by having it continue to be illegal and having these women be so disposable, that just perpetuates human trafficking.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's what's making it so much worse. By villainizing these women and not letting them be the victims they are, we're just protecting the perpetrators of these horrific crimes.
Well, that's what they say. When I say they, the human traffickers, when they are caught here in Idaho, they bring the women to Idaho, and or they steal them from Idaho and traffic them here because they say they're not going to be missed. They're not going to be missed here in Idaho because Idaho is nowhere. It's a no man's land. So they come here looking for them because they know we're not going to try and look for them or find them. I don't know if that's real. And if it is, that's really fucking sad. But that's what they tell the police because nobody cares here. If that is real, that's horrific. But I have heard that 2-3 dozen times at work. That is their reasoning why they come here. And they come from all over the United States, specifically here to do that. It's really gross.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he's in custody. I'm glad that hopefully he can't hurt anyone else. And we'll look for that court case in 7 years from now. Yeah,
the dozens of names that they showed at the end of the show was very, very sad that we're still missing in that community. I don't know if any of them are linked to him. I hope they will.
Well, they're saying it looks like these are linked, but the police haven't acknowledged that they're linked. The documentary had a lot of input from journalists. One journalist that was specifically looking at police corruption, and then another journalist that was specifically looking at women going missing and how that wasn't really being acknowledged. Now that we are nice and bummed out and my cats finally took a nap and then just woke up again, next week is going to be fun. And next week is fun because what we've been waiting for the whole time, the whole reason for me to get to have this podcast is I want to talk to you about the Valley. And I want to have scheduled time to sit down and have a conversation with you. So the Valley starts, season 2 starts next Tuesday. And then we've also got to talk about finally the final end of 90 Day Fiancé, Last Resort, season 2, tell-all, finished. We'll wrap it up with a bow.
Yep. We'll find out who Josh is living with the whole time while seeing Natalie. Come on, people.
Can people stop letting him make commercials where he's lip syncing, please? Stop giving him money. Well, I think this is pretty solid. We are at 2 hours, 10 minutes. So I will be editing so much out, guys. But it's a long one for a reason. But all right. Well, thank you. And everyone get pumped for next week. Bye-bye.